All right, looks like it's no visitors just yet. Maybe Saturday mornings, people are busy. So while we're waiting, I'm going to let you know, a few of you, when somebody decides to show up, that we have a chat window, and you could probably find on your mobile. I don't know how that works, but on tablets, desktops, laptops, you're able to chat with me live, ask questions if you want. At the very top of the chat window, if you can find it, you'll find that I have the ability where you can book an appointment. I have a website, and obviously, you have a link to my reviews. For those of you that don't know me, I own section8consulting.com, and I've been doing these type of videos for about 7 years here. And over a 20-year course, I've helped probably in excess of around 10,000 people. So this is not something that's new to me. I'm well known amongst the YouTube community, as well as on Google. I rank #1 for both. So I think my reputation pretty much speaks for itself. I'm not here this morning to sell anybody anything, so I just will let you guys know. Year round, I'm usually booked 3 weeks at a time. And so sometimes it's hard to get an appointment with me. In fact, earlier this year, it got so bad I was working about 80 hours a week, and of course, it had a big impact on my health. But anyways, I'll let you know, if you do feel that you need my help, you're welcome to book those appointments liberally. Okay. The main goal of this channel is to be able to help people as much as possible for free without incurring a charge, because I think that if you're going to deal with housing vouchers and Section 8, and you try to create a business model around that, you're asking low income people to give you money when in fact they don't. So that's never my goal. It's to try to help people during one of the worst pandemics we've ever had in U.S. history, one of the most overheated housing markets that has existed, and one of the worst eviction crises around, where the vast majority of all housing authorities are closed. Those that are open, it was already difficult to get a voucher, and now it's put in the arena. It's almost in the stratosphere, trying to get this. So you have to have every technical edge at this point just to distinguish yourself at a preference level to be able to rank higher than other people, if that's what your goal is. Now, there, as I've mentioned in many of my videos, there's over 200, last 7 years. But as I've mentioned, there are many different avenues we can pursue, and sometimes you have to move. And I got to tell you, earlier this year and throughout this career, I've always recommended we head, straight into this by addressing where you're currently living in the city. But a lot of the situations become so dire that I'm having to send people to different parts of their state, and sometimes even out of state, just to find adequate housing, because it's tough. It's a real tough market. So what I'm going to do right now, since it's a Q&A videos, I'm going to answer some of these comments I see popping up. Hopefully y'all are hearing me okay. So let's take a look, see what we got. Jalen, good to see you. Jazzy, welcome back. Jazzy's a longtime member. Jalen's been around for a minute. Felicia Cooley, I know her. She's been around a minute. George Henry, I've seen you here before. Good morning, Mr. Henry. Wanda Cruz, how are you doing this morning? And Wanda does ask, is Section 8 for Waterbury, Connecticut? I don't know if I interpreted the question correctly, Wanda, but I believe that I would imagine that Waterbury, Connecticut does have Section 8. It's hard for me to keep 5,500 housing lists in my mind, as you can imagine. So it's a lot to keep up with all this. I'm happy to check into that for you, Wanda. It's not something I would be able to easily do in this video right now. Jazzy, or Jasmine Victoria, asked me, I have a question. And so I'm going to take a look at the question. How do I get my housing voucher? Do I have to pay the fee they charge to apply at the department? Okay. Now, there is a very thin federal line with charging fees. Now, one thing you guys have to understand is, under most circumstances, you really shouldn't be charged a fee. However, there are administrative costs when you go to subsidy properties. In other words, it's a privately owned building and it's not the housing authority. And so when they run your criminal credit and all that, that does cost money. So as a technicality, if you're paying between 30 Really, it should be around $35. If you live in somewhere that's expensive, like New York or New Jersey, it can be as high as $50. Once you exit $50, then you're into the scam, straight up scam, walk away. One thing I got to tell you is if you're going to even bother paying these type of fees, which everybody does, you need to be absolutely clear. You need to show me first that you, A, have a unit available. I need to be able to walk into it and see that it's empty. Two, you want to make sure the property doesn't have a history as using one of these units as a way for them to make $50 an hour. A lot of underhanded landlords will keep a unit available all the time, never lease it. Why? Because he makes more money per hour off of fake fees than he does actually leasing the unit. You see what the problem there is? So you would want to make sure if you're using subsidy properties that it is a lit property, LITCH, and that it is something that HUD and the Housing Authority have authorized. So beyond that, Jasmine Victoria, fees, yes, all kinds of fees, but the only fees you should be paying is the administrative for criminal credit and so on. And again, I have to say that does cost some money, and to be frank, there's not many ways to get around that, even for the landlord. So yes. Now, you should also be aware there are a lot of programs which would help you with fees to pay for that. If you don't ask, you don't receive kind of situation, and sometimes the housing authority will assist with that. You'd be surprised at how many nonprofits would assist. If the only thing standing between you and the apartment is 15, 20, or $50, then maybe reaching out to get a few people to help you with that. Nikki Jenkins, been a minute. How are you doing, Miss Jenkins? Omo Yamango Kolo, and I can't say the rest. It's one of those fantastic names. But Mr. and Mrs. Omo, since I don't know if you're male or female, welcome to the channel. And it says, that person says, hello, I have an emergency Section 8 voucher meeting coming up. Can I get a 3-bedroom with a doctor's accommodation? Well, let's look at what accommodations are. So there's an absolute, let's look at it 3 different ways. One, we have to have enough people to actually make it reasonable for you to have 3 bedrooms. So if you want a 3-bedroom, there must be first 3 people existing. Second to that, there are special rules in certain states. For instance, in California, they can consider your living room an actual bedroom. Now, that's not the case in most states, but when housing is tight, and in places like California, they can implement that strange rule. Number 2, if you have aides or care workers, yes, if they're there greater than 12 hours a day, and yes, but no, you cannot simply just compel the housing authority to compel the property to give you a 3-bedroom simply because you have a note. Now, that is part of the requirement in order to be able to get that, but I think that's a discussion you really need to have with your housing specialist. And I got to tell you that can go well or it can go badly. There's definitely there's a good way to set that up where it works well. Moving on to Pamela Foster. I received a housing voucher in Kansas. Then you poured it into California to be next to your child. And it seemed like you're saying that there's help. They received paperwork in July 22nd. Got the packet, filled it out, returned it on August 26th. Okay. Ms. Foster, I should tell you that anytime that you're porting from one state to another, that's probably one of the more sophisticated processes because first you're doing RTA or RTFA packets. You're asking for permission from the current housing authority to be able to exit the property, and then that housing authority specialist speaking with whatever housing specialist there is in the next state, and then they will have to determine whether or not they're going to be billing, okay, whether they're going to bill it, and then accept you, and then if the housing market is stable enough that if you came there, could you actually find a place? So those processes under a ordinary circumstances would take around 45 days. Housing authority specialists from both your housing authority and the housing authority that you're trying to reach out to or move into, or that area in California, you're at their pleasure. It's as soon as they want to process and do the paperwork. Also, sometimes there's friction between one specialist and one city to the next. Let's keep in mind what I've said all along about housing authorities and attitudes. A lot of the people who work at housing authorities have shitty attitudes. And so when you get 2 shitty people from 2 shitty housing authorities communicating, sometimes that communication goes very slowly because both sides have demands. You see my point? A lot of times I've had to intermediate that just to speed it up because too many people with attitudes. Trust me on this deal. I've had 20 years to watch this play out like school children and kindergarten. Okay. Housing authority to housing authority with attitudes. But don't let that freak you out. It's just normal part of the bureaucratic process. It's just trying to navigate a little better. Jasmine, thank you, Jay. I have a referral for a housing voucher put in for me, and I'm waiting for them to call me. But they say since I'm living in a hotel, it may be before the 30-day mark. That is correct. Typically 35. But again, that's an open window. It's kind of like when you call the AC man and he says I'm going to be there between 1 and 4 hours. So I think that your maximum line's around 35 days. And states that are difficult, it can go up to 60. So yeah, Miss Wallstrop still without housing. Well, that would be you and probably close to 40 million other people, and then an additional 8 million that have homes that no longer have them. So your situation, Miss Walsh, is not unusual. It's actually quite common right now. As I mentioned, with the housing market being overheated, people charging too much rent, 40 up to 40 million evicted, another 8 million homeowners have lost their homes. Every housing authority being closed, and we had in a pandemic, so it's really does leave little to the imagination why you might still be without housing. It's a tough market, and then if you compound that factor by living in states like New York and in California, where it was already a massive problem, then yeah, it could be a little while. That's why I tell people it's a challenging time. You have to put in time and effort. I have some clients that hire me and they tell me, hey, man, look, here's the money. Why don't you give me a ring when the voucher's in the mail? What I do is I hang up on them and refund their money because you're delusional. That's the thing, guys. When I work with clients, you've got to be willing to put in all as much effort as I am because it takes everything right now. Look, the old rules and the old thing, the way the old things used to work back prior to this pandemic 19, I could move to this system at an exceptional pace and I can exploit it quite well. The pandemic has changed that. So the magic, the fairy dust I can sprinkle on it, and the skills that I use, through reading all these manuals and operations manuals, and working with housing authorities to help people navigate through the stuff quicker than the average person, has now become sophisticated and complicated, and it requires a lot more time. There's a whole lot of unpredictability, and then you factor in the fact that almost all housing authorities are actually closed, and you got people working from their living room, in their pajamas, and a lot of people don't want to work that used to work at a housing authority. They prefer you didn't call them, that you didn't email them. And that's if you can even find a number to that particular employee in their pajamas in their own home. So, yeah, it's a crazy situation. Thing about it is, guys, bitching about it ain't going to help you. All right. Bitching ain't going to get anywhere fast. Sonia Grinstaff, how you doing? Sonia's a longtime member. Appreciate you. Glad you managed to catch me on this one. Cassie, they say that housing is closed. How can I get on? Well, Cassie, one thing I got to tell you about that is I don't even know where you are in the U.S. I mean, my guess could be up to 3,000 different cities. You got to let me know. Depending on where you are, I'd have to check it in and see. That's the thing. Things change rapidly. 1 minute the light bulbs are on at the housing authority down the street. Next minute they're out. 1 minute they've got 5 vouchers, then they close it down again. Miami, let me give you a great example. I told you all about the last video. Miami opened the waiting list for 1 day. 1/4 of the population applied, which was 90,000 to 400,000. Unheard of numbers. That's astronomical. 25% of the city applied. They only had 5,000 vouchers to get. You had a better chance of winning the fucking lotto than getting that voucher, okay? So these are the kind of games we have to. This is the stuff we're all going through, trying to compete. Now you went from applying to vouchers. Now you're competing for these things. You're competing. You're absolutely competing. So you got Sally in a wheelchair with one busted eyeball and a missing leg, and then you've got cancer and you're 99. Who's going to get it? That's the thing. We have to do so much more, build so much more into your application to make you seem more needy, poorer than you've ever been, broker than you've ever been. We've got to pull every puppet string there is. And that's putting it in layman terms. And the more sophisticated terms, when you read a 900-page operations or HCB manual, you look at the special preferences, cause, reasons, and the algorithm and what it bases that system on in order to move a person up 5 spots or move them down 4 spots is quite compelling. Then you add in another 13,000 of legislation. Then you put in Title 24. Then you put in about 500,000 pages of federal regulation. And then you compile all that, you throw it in my head, and then you're looking at another factor. I have to be able to interpret and understand that every housing authority, which is every county in America, has a different manual, and I have to have all of those as well. So it's a lot, guys. It's a whole lot. Trust me. It's never a conversation where you call me and how are you doing? How's the weather? It's all about business and getting to it as quickly as we can, because sad stories don't get vouchers. What gets vouchers is what I know. Anyways, I'm sorry I'm pushing on guys a little hard this morning. So, it says Ms. Foster was also informed by Kansas that until California picks up the bill to pay even 15 years, Kansas pays bills months for housing, have a doctor, search, accommodation, extra. Well, you got a fair chance, Pamela. I mean, as long as you're meeting all the criteria under federal regulation, as well as the HCB manual that they have there, and it meets the approval of both the director and the specialist, which would be the housing specialist, then you likely would be able to do so. There's a difference between entitlements and the ability actually to get it because you can. There's never a guarantee. If it's not available, there's no guarantee. So there are definitely ways that you could improve your situation, but that would be a video in itself. Daniel Austin, if I'm in California and you're a student and you're in a transitional living program, what can you recommend in terms of getting a cosigner, non-parent or friend, as well as HCB, so I may transition independent living? Well, the perfect program for you, Daniel, would be to focus on and I want you to write this down, Section 504. If we can prove that you're both a student and that you have a disability, we have a very high likelihood of being able to approach the housing authority for an HCB voucher, which would remove you out of transitional. We could probably shoot you into Continuum of Care, and then from there, while we're waiting for HCB or the 504 voucher, so it's a process we would have to work through. You're already in the most difficult state there is. So I don't know what city or county you're in. That's going to play a major role in that. But if certain factors are in place, Daniel, I believe that with some confidence, we could utilize it, because the 504 program, if you're young, you're a student, college student, so on, that's underutilized. So there is some room for you. Extra room for numerous, so Ms. Foster says extra room for numerous equipment and for disability. Sorry for the extra message. Oh, it's no problem, Ms. Foster. Okay, so if you have enough equipment, yes, and other instruments to help you with the disability, that would actually be an absolutely good reason to do so. I would have to look into the particular state that you're in. You may have already communicated that to me. And you would also really want to play that very smart. Add medical equipment for one room and a care aid being the other, and then pick somebody, friend or family member, that's qualified to do so and that is approved by the housing authority, would create the best situation for you. However, we are really pulling unicorns out of the sky right now, because I got to tell you, if the housing market is overheated and there's not a lot to give, you may find some resistance from the housing authority and wanting to approve a larger space, when in fact they have a lot of large families that need it as well. So I would say that they would begrudgingly grant that if you are persistent, and I would make sure that your requests are always by email and written communication, certified, and so on. Okay. Also, you'd want to meet the letter of federal regulation with that. And you would have to have your evidence as well as the medical equipment. So the doctor can say whatever he wants and certified. But if that housing authority employee doesn't make a visit, they're going to want to see this. And so you better be ready for that. Okay. Classy. Is it Chassis or Classy? See, I'm half blind, it seems like. I always read these names wrong. So we'll call you Class. You're in California. Okay. So yeah, you're in a tough market, definitely. They said they have no more emergency vouchers. Well, here's the deal. It was a little bag of vouchers. So they gave out 70,000 vouchers nationwide. Now you divide that number by 5,400 counties or 5,500 counties, you end up with, and then it would also be based on the bigger cities and smaller cities. So basically, they only had about 25 to 50, even in the largest cities. So yeah, they went like hotcakes. And the only way to get those emergency vouchers was actually not through the housing authority. A lot of emergency vouchers or HBAs were given out through the Continuum of Care for people that were going to be imminently homeless. Now, I'm not suggesting there's no more. They're getting more funding, but I think that you're going to have to get a referral or recommendation by an organization that is respected and honored by the housing authority. A lot of you guys think you can go apply directly for that. That is not the case. What the case usually is they're looking for a direct referral for mental health from the county, a county employee, and so on. So, and that's why some of you may struggle with it. Also, if you're working with counselors and other things through not just mental health but other physical therapies and so on, then that they could also make that damn phone's about to piss me off here. I swear to God, a friend of mine left his iPhone on in the house. So, anyways, look, if you don't know how to get that, I would suggest just contacting me because it's not something it's not something I can quickly just grab. That drive me wild. Why do people pick retarded phone rings like that? I don't know. They're popping and buzzing, and I like old-fashioned ringtones, I guess. Who knows? So anyways, guys, I think we got 16 viewers, so that's a little bit. I didn't expect Saturday morning to be that hot of a topic for us. But if you do have any questions about Section 8 housing, low-income housing, subsidized housing, COC housing, gosh, the list goes on. I keep a regular list of it. A neat fact, around 138 different types of vouchers and subsections are out there. So let me tell you a few about them. So I bet you a lot of you, the one you all seem to love them the most is, can I get Section 811? Man, I can't tell you how many times the housing authority people have probably had their heads twist in circles, like the Exorcist movie, when y'all say that word. They want to vomit and roll down the stairs upside down because everybody thinks you can just go apply for Section 811. So Section 811 is just the type of funding it is. A voucher is a voucher, and then that voucher, what's written on it, determines where the funding comes from. So if they give you an HCV voucher, housing choice voucher, the funding would come from Section 811. Or it may come from Section 202. It may come from the NED program for senior or non-elderly programs. You could be a student with a disability with Section 504. It could be emergency. Okay, let's see. EHVs, HAVs. It could be RRH, rapid rehousing, PSH, permanent supportive housing. It could be VA, which is domestic violence against women. It could be, gosh, I could keep going, couldn't I? Man, I got to tell you, most of you guys have probably been to college. It's like having to reread this. And the next president we get, he's going to want to change all this stuff. And guess what I get to do? Sit there till my eyes twist around in my head and trying to read and learn again how to help you guys. I got to tell you, every election is a killer for me. I prefer him to stay in office 8 years because man, that's no fun. Okay, so Classy says, so we would need a county employee to put in a referral. Yes, a county employee typically. Certain nonprofits have a little bit of political pull with that, but yeah, they tend to make those referrals more for the homeless and mentally ill than anything. So if you don't have the problem, then you might reconsider whether or not you're bipolar. I know that sounds a little bit twisted, but look, if they're handing out vouchers backdoor and referral for an emergency, and all you need to say to your doctor is that you've been happy and you've been sad for the last 20 years of your life, then that's probably the easiest way. The thing is, you don't want to go to a normal psychiatrist. You'd want to go to one that's run by the county. So it'd be a county hospital or a state hospital because those are the people they accept the referrals from. It's not going to be from your neighborhood doctor. So it's got to be county employees, county funded or state funded. Those of you that are natural disasters, fires, floods, and so on, you guys also can get quick housing choice vouchers as emergency vouchers because you're in the middle of a natural disaster. For instance, those in Louisiana that were just recently hit by Hurricane Nicholas. So Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, possibly parts of Florida, Texas. Those of you out there in forest fires and California. And if you happen to be up north in Minnesota and Chicago and New York and New Jersey, when y'all get these weird hurricanes occasionally up there and also blizzards. So as long as it's a national event, then you can get a recommendation for FEMA, recommendation from Red Cross, and many others. Now, those of you that are not extremely schooled on what Continuum of Care is, today would be the day. So you write in Continuum of Care and the word homeless, you'll learn that there's a whole nother system of vouchers, and I've spoke about those exclusively because roughly half of my clients are in a situation where they may become homeless or they're going to be imminently homeless, which means they're being put out of their home and they don't really have a place to go. Those vouchers take about 35 days, but it can be a bit of a complicated process if you don't know what you're doing, because they give you assessments. They ask you questions that you don't know what they are prior to that, and based on your answers, you earn a certain amount of points. All those points need to add up to a certain amount, and then that's entered into an algorithm called HIMS, which is the Homeless Information Management System, and that determines whether or not they grant you one of these magical vouchers. Well, I learned how to exploit that system a long time ago for my clients, and I think we've had a lot of success in that area. Thing about it is, I have to say the word exploit because if people were issuing vouchers for a virtuous reason, then there would be no need or existence for somebody like me to go in and play the game with the housing authority and with these other programs and charities. Anytime, let me ask you a question. When somebody says, hey, we have a lottery at the housing authority, when you hear the word lottery, does that not imply that one, you're competing, two, that it's a game? Look, guys, here's the deal. I play the game and I try to play it better than the people that created it. And I can tell you I'm better educated than the people that actually administer and work for these housing authorities because I have a great deal more manuals. Also, every city and housing authority essentially they have their own operations manuals, their own data manuals. And so what happens with that is they don't write that stuff. It's so you have legislation, which is then added on to by federal regulation. Then they turn it over to Harvard or Yale students to write out what the rules are going to be, and then that's turned over to an organization called Nat and McKay, which makes all the housing authority operational manuals. These manuals determine how the employees act, what they do, and the reasons in which you get a voucher. If you have those books, if you have those manuals, and you compel them under federal law to give them to you, then you can see that it leaves little to my imagination that I can compete not only with them, and not only am I competing with them, but I'm able to defeat their system. Why? Because I see the system in its entirety. There's nothing that's not left for me to see. In addition to that, having access to all of those manuals, as well as probably over 100 angry housing authority employees that currently work for housing authorities around America that hate their job, they hate the way things go there, and they often give me a great deal of information that might not otherwise ever reach the light of day. So there are many, many tactics that I deploy in order to defeat these systems. But it all goes back to one thing. If it was fair, then we would all be able to go apply normally and then be able to get what was needed. But since it's not designed to be fair, that it's a competition in the game run by angry and pissed off people that act unprofessionally, then that's where I come in place. Just like when you go on Netflix and you watch that old series called Better Call Saul, well, you better call me because I know how to compete with these guys. I understand what needs to happen, and I make it happen. Now, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I've never communicated to anybody that my reputation is not without fail. My current success rate is 93%. That means that 7% of the time I absolutely fail with this, which means my best game isn't good enough. What I know, sometimes it's not going to be good enough to compete in certain situations, depending on how sophisticated your case is. But that's the difference between somebody talking shit on YouTube that scams people and then somebody that's actually giving you the truth. I can prove what I do. I can tell you my failure rate, and I don't care what people think about it. That's the difference. You see, that puts the integrity into it. If you're willing to accept a 7% loss, or maybe blow your money and find out that you're going to be part of that 7%, that's your business. Yeah, I have a few occasional people where it doesn't work out, but I got to tell you, let's examine 7%. 7% of the people that I deal with where this doesn't work is because they often have they're disconnected from reality because of mental illness. Okay, and so they're not able to do things functionally the way they should. I have other people that suffer from problems with the IQ, educational problems. So they don't really interpret reality like a normal person does. And so they're unable to take care of basic tasks. Of course, I'm going to fail when I have a client like that because I cannot get them to even do it. Then the worst of the worst is going to be my middle class suburban moms who believe everything should just be handed to them. They should call me and then they would like me, pay me, and then they like me to drive to their house and hand them the voucher. Delusional, completely delusional, entitled people. I don't mean just white women. I mean all white women, all white men, all middle class, stay at home dads, all of them. All, the middle class drive me wild with that. They just, they think it's Amazon. I'm going to order me a voucher. No, you're not. I'm just going to hang up on your ass. I don't have time for silliness. So, anyways, sorry to chew on you guys a little bit, but I just want to be real. You have to have realistic expectations. Have you ever gone to the driver's license office and you were smiling inside? You went in there and you wanted to bring them cakes and sodas and all that. Did you ever believe for a minute that that was going to be full of bullshit? Well, imagine this. We're dealing with Section 8. How much of this shit do you think I have to shovel in order to get it done for you? Quite a bit. So that's the point. I want you to see it for the full gravity of what it is. It's a lot of work. Whole lot. This pandemic flipped it and just made it a much bigger monster. In fact, a gentleman asked me, man, you're about 20 bucks higher than you were last year. Well, you know what? Last year I was doing my job like I normally do it. Now, I'm having to call places where I know that they actually don't even have a phone anymore. You see my point? So my job has become 5 and 10 times harder than it used to be. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm not going to work for nickels and pennies. I did that for a long time. And I offered advice for many, many years. And you got to tell you, there were so many ungrateful people for that. Trying to help, and then there's just no respect behind it. So it is what it is. All right, Nikki Jenkins, good to see you. I forgot an application in April, she says. They sent me a letter last month saying that I was on the HCB waiting list and to fill out a background check. Will I have to wait for a year or longer? Let me reread that question, make sure I understand you. Abel sent me a letter last month saying that I was on HCB waiting list. Okay, there's two things you should be looking for when you've applied for a voucher and you're getting close to actually receiving that. Most of you know now that when you apply for housing choice vouchers or any type of voucher, the first thing they do is a process elimination. They're asking you, it's a pre-application, and they want to see if that you make too much money if you don't live in the county. If you fail that part, then they're pretty much going to get rid of you, or they'll put you on a 15-year wait. If you manage to get past the pre-application, then you receive a real application. That's going to be what preferences are built into usually. Some of you will get the real one to start with, some will not. Now, once you complete all that and they come back to you again to start verifying your information, you're almost as guaranteed as a day is long that within 30 to 45 days, they're fixing to kick you out of voucher. Okay. So, look, guys, keeping your name, your number, your email, and putting multiple numbers, multiple emails, put everybody connected to you on there as a way of form of contact, because you never know. It could be 8 months, it could be 3 years, it could be 15 years. By then, life changes. And the minute you don't answer the email, the phone, or whatever, they'll purge you from the list. That is the policy. And if you don't do your recertifications once a year, same thing. So that's the point. You're in the Galveston area, man. You know what? I'm in Houston, Nikki, and I got to tell you, you guys your lights got knocked out there pretty bad too, man. I think y'all got matchsticks for light poles out there. Y'all been hit so many times. I haven't checked in Galveston County lately. I know that Missouri is doing better. Houston's already closed. And then possibly Montgomery might be open, but I have to look into that for you, Miss Jenkins. Pamela Foster says, I've also received paperwork for my record keeping that was ported, which documents and proof of housing choice voucher. I guess a little confused about working through. Okay, let's see if I'm reading that right. You already have a housing choice voucher and it's enhanced. Okay. Gotcha. All right. Well, all right. Ms. Foster, I would just say email me about this. I know we've been bouncing back and forth in chat. I have to actually be able to focus really on what you're saying, and it's kind of hard to do it in this live chat because I know you've asked about 11 questions, and I probably could have solved all the questions in one hit in the email. So I would suggest just shoot me an email about that. You don't have to book an appointment; just shoot me an email. All right, guys. So we're at about 35 minutes. Like I said, I knew this morning was going to be a bit slow. If you're new to the channel, as I mentioned before, I own Section8Consulting.com. It's not hard to see. I'm the largest consultant on YouTube, also ranked number one on Google. So, in that respect, I think that you're safe dealing with me. Today, I'm answering questions and other things that people have about their vouchers, about getting them. There's a lot of people that are recently in a situation now where they've never ever considered having to accept vouchers or Section 8 or low income housing that have a lot of questions. And one thing that I do know is YouTube is filled with bullshit. Okay. People write articles, so you click on their ads. Those articles are worthless. You type in the word Section 8 and you look at articles on Google, a lot of that stuff's 5, 10 years old. The advice is terrible. And everybody that writes these articles write nonsense. You know what? I would compare the amount of wisdom into what they write in those articles as a piece of my fingernail. It's junk. And a lot of what I see on YouTube, I understand people want to make money on YouTube and, do neat things. But look, you cannot be a stockbroker expert one week. And the next week, you're going to be an expert on pedicures. And then you start making videos about Section 8. Look, you can go line to the first two groups, but when you start messing with low income people's lives by sitting there making silly videos about Section 8 and you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, you're playing with people's lives. You know what I'm saying? So you have to take that social responsibility serious. If you want to be an expert at fidget spinners, my God, go make all the videos you want to. But stop with the madness on YouTube with that, guys. I see a lot. I'm not speaking to the people watching now. I'm just saying you've seen some of these videos about Section 8 are just comical. Anyways, who's your daddy? Do you take clients from every state? Yes. When I started doing this, I started dealing with certain states because there was a higher propensity of need. Because Section 8 and low-income housing is in every state, but it took me time. I had to be able to get manuals, HCB manuals, operations manual, and data manuals for all these different housing authorities. It takes time to read through them and then, of course, be able to do that. Here we are all these years later. Yes, I deal with every state, including Honolulu, Puerto Rico. And so, yes, I even have people contact me from the UK, and I keep trying to tell my British friends, no, we don't do that. We're not the same as what you got there. Same thing with my Canadians. They visit a lot. And look, the way Canada does things is different than the U.S. I can't help you there. Sorry. Lawrence Ullman, affordable housing, Section 8 landlord in Greenville, South Carolina. Mr. Lawrence, I've had a number of landlords contact me from the great state of South Carolina. Seems like y'all doing great things out there. So you go on to say vouchers are below fair market rent after utility allowance deductions when tenants have low fixed incomes. Any advice? Well, housing authorities, there's a couple of things they'll never tell you. One thing the housing authorities are great about is not apprising you of your rights. That's more what I do. One, when you're able to afford an inspection by a certified official, that should be able to push up what you're able to get. Like my big landlords that have 200 to 500 units, the first thing they always do is they get an inspection of the property to prove that the amenities and the overall quality of the property is of a higher value, and it forces the housing authority employees, which are unlicensed contractors, it forces them in a position where they have to give you the highest rents. Now, I know that's not economical when you have one or two small houses, but that is one way. Number two, every housing authority will post a list of what they allow for rent for the area. Thing about that is what most of you don't realize, it is a negotiation. It's just like going on a used car lot. For those that have good negotiation skills, you're able to negotiate a price. Now, of course, their job is to lowball and yours is to highball. And my thing is, whatever you want for rent, always go after them. So when they come in for inspection, they're going to have they're going to have their own way of communicating that message. But you're going to want to start at 20%, but you really do need to look at the local properties around you. So the street behind you, the street in front of you, and the houses, of course, next to you, and see what fair market rates might be. If it turns into a bit of a battle and you want to get better fair rates, then you can always arbitrate that through HUD. I know that's kind of all over the place. So yeah, I do negotiate on behalf of landlords quite often in that respect, usually for a lot of units because of that particular game. I don't think a lot of people want to become they become a landlord. They don't realize all the different things they can do. Also, Mr. Lawrence, to tell you one more thing before I move on, you should also be negotiating incentives. A lot of housing authorities are desperate because there are no landlords with no properties to rent. In other words, if you're able to sign up a lease for 12 months with one of their housing choice vouchers, they can offer you anywhere from $500 to $5,000 for a 12-month lease. In some cases, it's for every tenant you sign. In other cases, it may be a one-time deal for only one lease. Thing is, that $5,000 could level the playing field for you at least for the term of that lease. Remember that you don't need to evict people. You simply don't have to re-sign them again. So that's my advice there, Mr. Lawrence, is to explore all those options. And as a matter of record, there are over 32 types of incentives you can get, which would protect you against damage and other things. But again, it's not the housing authority's job to teach you that stuff, because if you don't know, they're certainly not going to offer. So it's kind of an unusual game, cat and mouse with them. Moving on. Sue says, what state do you live? I live in the state of Texas. I was originally born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Cajun out of Baton Rouge, but I lived in Houston, Texas so long that I'm a Cajun cowboy, I guess. I don't know. So yes, used to. If y'all had met me 20 years ago, you would have y'all would have heard that Louisiana twang, kind of a Cajun Creole accent you hear from people. It's kind of a opposite version of New York and New Jersey kind of deal, but not as intense as Boston. All right, Hollywood name. I'm in the Bay Area in California. I have to move out of transitional housing on 1031. I used to live actually in California, and I know your system of SROs over there. I know that you guys have GA, and I know about, I think at the time when I lived there, it was the neighborhood was, what was it called? Gosh, it's been so long. I forget. But anyways, let me go move on to your question. What is the first step I need to take to qualify for HCV? I am nearing becoming homeless. Okay. Well, okay, the first thing we need to do is establish how many housing authorities there are in the greater Bay Area. One thing I'm going to tell you, Hollywood Dame, is because I know San Francisco Bay Area well, it has more support services than any city or state in the planet. There are more things out there in that city. The one thing the city does suffer from is a lack of housing. Your best option may actually be exiting the Bay Area and going over one or two counties, and that would drop that waiting list or the impossibility of getting that, and would increase your odds by 1,000%. Look, San Francisco Bay Area has always been a dreadful place. That's why it's not dreadful. It's actually a neat city, but the housing crisis is intense over there, and so are the rents. My advice for you would be checking out all the different housing authorities and see if they have open waiting lists. If you're willing to cross the bridge, the Golden Gate, and consider other counties, then I think that your search could greatly increase, because you're technically in North California. It's not as bad as going down south where you've got LA and Orange. All right, moving on. I'm going to have a drink, guys, of my pina colada. Bang. And I'm not sponsored by these people, but it's like a beach in a bottle. No sugar and no carbs. It's kind of weird, actually, having coconut in your drink. God, dog it. Can't get used to that. All right, Blessing says, quick question. I will play for Section 8 back. Okay, I'm not quite understanding what you're saying there, but quick question. We'll play for Section back then. Okay, so all right, I see what you're saying, Blessing. Okay. So back in 1994, you may or may not have been involved in Section 8 back. Boy, let me tell you something. It was a lot different in those days than it is now, okay? So if you had it back in 94 or you didn't have it, the rules in which you got that then are not even going to look the same anymore. It's changed a lot. Let me clarify a few things because we always want to. And Michael Lexon, I appreciate the $4.99. And so I'm going to say a few things about Michael real quick. Michael, I use that money in the care and rescue of cats. A lot of you know that from watching my videos. I rescue cats, not just people in Section 8. I know y'all know that I'm dragging homeless from under the bridge, trying to get elderly out of shelters and things like that, but I also rescue cats, and I use that money specifically for that reason. Cats get deathly ill. I know I've spent several $1,000s saving lives because anything that breathes matters, to me, especially my cats. I don't have dogs because having all these cats wouldn't work very well with dogs, okay? So it just ended up that way. So I appreciate the money. And it will go to a good cause. Now back to Miss Blessing. Okay, so I see that you live in New York and you're doing okay. Now, one thing about New York is you have 67 social and human service agencies. So New York is a lot like San Francisco. You've got a lot going on out there, and so you have county, state, and federal programs, not including having a housing authority in Manhattan, Queens, Bronx, and so on. That is a very, very sophisticated system of things there, Blessing. I better tell you. My advice to you is if you can afford to hire me as a consultant, that would be your best option. I'm not recommending you spend your money. You can do whatever you want. But I got to tell you, New York, that is a challenge. And I got to tell you that New Yorkers in New Jersey represent 40% of my clients because of the sophisticated way in which they do things out there. And a lot of my clients, they end up living in broom closets. Now, I'm not sending them to do that, but I'm trying to pull them out of expensive broom closets. You're in there with the broom and the mop. You've got 4 square feet, and it's a pretty miserable existence in some of those apartments in New York. Same thing in Jersey. And the problem was compounded by generational vouchers. That's where somebody in the 70s got a voucher. She passed it down to her daughter, that passed it down to her grandson, and so on. And so people in New York and New Jersey have been gaming the system so long, passing these things down as if they were an asset in a will, that they've locked up the vouchers and created all kinds of havoc in New York and New Jersey. So, and it's a whole different thing. Of course, when you get to California, they don't do that, but I'll just tell you that you'll find the housing systems get very interesting in certain parts of the country. Even at one point, it was mafia controlled in Boston. Okay, so now, so I know that sounds a bit strange, but it's true. Then in 1878, my local HUD office isn't helping me figure out how to get Section 811. That comes as no shock. Let me tell you something, guys. To put this in context, if you were driving down the road and you got pulled over and a cop beat you up, okay? Beat you up, get out the hospital, you go down to the police station, and lo and behold, who's at the window to help you? The same cop that beat your ass, right? So let me tell you about the housing authority. If you expect the cop that just beat you up to help you, excuse me, can you help me get you fired? You see my point. So the thing is, dealing with housing authorities, they're never going to apprise you of all your rights. A lot of you, when you have complaints and issues, you go to the housing authority expecting them to discipline themselves. That's absurd. If you think these people care enough to tell you all the policies, procedures, and rules, they're not required under federal law to do that. They'd like to keep you barefooted and crazy and trying to figure it out. Look, that's what I'm here for. Now, going back to what you were saying about that, look, the reason the housing authority has such an attitude about Section 811 is because we had so many morons make articles about it. Section 811 is a designation under subsection law that says under certain conditions, a person may receive a voucher and funding from Section 811. Okay, so Section 811 is a subsection, just like you would find in tax law. You're going there to get a housing voucher. If your case is compelling, you are a senior and you're disabled, or you're a non-senior and disabled, they may choose to pull funding under the premise of subsection 811 of that. There's no physical voucher with a number Section 811 on it, okay? I've been trying for 2 years to get you guys to stop walking in those buildings and driving those people crazy about Section 811. You have to guide your application by having certain things present in your case. And if those things are present, they will grant you a housing choice voucher that is connected to Section 811. Okay, so I know that's That sounds a bit ruthless, but it's true. We have to approach it from that direction. All right. Nikki Jenkins, today, did you answer the line? I didn't hear. I'm sorry, my phone. Miss Jenkins, I don't call anybody on Saturdays. I don't work on Saturdays. So if you had an appointment with me, you might want to check that. I can guarantee you that. I don't limit days on. Guys, this phone right here, if you had a phone and I gave up my phone number for 15 or 20 years, let me ask you a question. Do you think I'd keep this damn thing on my days off? No, absolutely not. People call me for all kinds of crazy shit. It'd be look, I had a lady call me 3 o'clock in the morning the other day. Do you think she cared whether I was sleeping or not? People are selfish. They'll call you. Now, I'm not suggesting this is your case. I'm just saying that I rarely answer this phone, okay? Because people will text and call you till you die. So, unless people have an actual appointment, that's when I do it. And I try to respond to emails, obviously. But look, the phone, no. Because what would be the point of being a consultant? If I'm selling what I'm talking about, why the hell would I want to answer the phone for free, But anyways, I don't know. I'll check in there, Ms. Jenkins, and see if you left me a message or something. But I don't think I have anything on that. Karen Reeves, oh my God, New Jersey system is the worst. That is technically very close. Jersey's is absurd. Yes, I put it in the top 3 of craziness. Yes. Let me tell you something, man. You got to know somebody in New Jersey, almost. Okay. If you don't know somebody, then you got to hire somebody like me, because that system out there, let me tell you something. It's all about who you know. It's all about that. And if you don't know that, you got to put up your best case. And yeah, so I see that you're saying that you live now in Tampa, which is better. At least you're out there by the beach. You've been treated nicely, even though you've been on a list for Section 811 since 2016. Wow, that's a long time. But you know what? Florida is one of the more unusual states, because out there things run a little bit slower for everything. Just like my CFC clients, they take twice as long to do everything in the state of Florida. I don't understand that. It's almost at the level of what the length of time you deal with in New York. I don't get it. Moving on, Denise Hicks. The rent is extremely high. How do we increase our voucher? So what you're technically saying, that's called rent reasonableness. And with that being said, under recertification. So a lot of you guys have received a voucher 8 years ago. You've been comfortably utilizing your voucher for your housing. And then when you're watching your rent constantly go up, the thing about it is landlords are entitled every 6 months to raise the rent, but you're also entitled every 6 months to reevaluate your situation and see if you can get an adjustment under your rent reasonableness. So the landlord's moving at his pace. You need to be matching his course. And let's go back to that original saying. A lot of you guys, the housing authority is never going to publish a letter saying, hey, by the way, could you call and email us every 6 months so we can give you more money? Fuck no, they're not going to do that. So you see how they are, right? So that's the thing. That's the great thing about talking about somebody like me, is because I know what needs to happen where it needs to happen. Also, I know that the things they're never going to tell you. It's like telling the whole truth. Well, you need to do this, this, and this, and then all of a sudden they stop talking. What's unsaid is often the things you guys need to know. Denise Hicks, I have to hire you in Michigan. I love the good state of Michigan. I've gone to battle in that state many times with housing authorities, and I find it quite enjoyable. They give up easily. I end up being like a rock in somebody's shoe. After a while, your little penny loafers are going to blow up with me in there as a rock, because I become painful, and then eventually you'll lose your mind, or you'll just have to say, fuck it, give me a voucher. That's a lot of the technique employed with a lot of housing authorities, is when I go after, once I put pressure on these people over and over and over, some of them I bait and trap, so I know that I've got them to violate that federal rule. And at that point, they have no other choice. Okay, do I risk an investigation with HUD, or do I just give this consultant's client the voucher? And the consensus usually is it'd be easier just to get rid of him and his clients. You see my point? So I can trap you, I can bait you, I can beat you under federal law. There's a lot of ways I can do this. And it's persistence of doing it and putting on multiple layers of pressure on these housing authorities to simply give you the goods. Rarely do I have to win under integrity, because if they were honest to start with, then I wouldn't be a rock in your shoe to start with. But that's the point. You have to know the game well enough to play it many different ways, and that's eventually what happens with these housing authorities. They just say, "Look, this is just not worth dealing with this guy anymore. It's too much. He's already got three of the employees in the housing authority under investigation. The director of the housing authority, she's already shut her door. She's not going to give up her job. So I guess one of us are going to have to quit her job. You see, I make people responsible, and I bait them, and I wait for them to fuck up, and then that's when I've got you. Once I have you, you got two options at that housing authority. You can resign your job, or I'm going to take you up to regional, and then I'll shoot you up to actual DC, and then bam, you're gone. The other option is take the easy path. Let's be friends, give my client the voucher for the right reasons, okay? So that's a simple way of me saying it's actually a little bit more complex than that, okay? I know that sounded pretty smooth, but trust me, there's a lot more than that. So anyway, let's move on. Hollywood Dame. I was told if you stay in a homeless shelter for a certain amount of time, I will qualify for a housing voucher. Well, Hollywood Dame, I think that you were either hearing what you wanted to hear, or you were listening to the housing authority, which never tells a very good story. Let's look at that, how it should actually work. You're in a homeless shelter. The homeless shelters are nonprofits. All nonprofits participate in Continuum of Care, better known as COC. Those COC programs can offer you one of two things: rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing. What are the conditions in which that organization will issue the voucher? The condition must be A, you're homeless, and B, there's about 9 other factors that can be considered, but usually homelessness, disability, and domestic violence play the biggest factors, and whether or not you're issued one of those two vouchers. Are you required to actually stay in a homeless shelter to receive one of those two vouchers? Absolutely not. That's just what the homeless shelter would prefer you to believe. Why? Because they make, while you're waiting to get your voucher in their homeless shelter, they also make some cash. So what you are is a cash pony. You're walking around with little bows in your hair, and you're a cash pony for the shitty homeless shelter. And so they have no real incentive to kick you out of there as long as the feds are paying for you to be there. So for at least 30 days to up to 90, you're just a cash pony that's being air conditioned. You see my point? I know that's a horrible way to put it, but I want you to feel my intensity with that, because that's the kind of shit that's going on. Does anybody at the shelter or otherwise need to explain that to you? No. The only guy that's actually going to open his lips about it is going to be somebody like me and say, hey, this is the reality of what it really is. Okay? Shelters are nothing but a county jail with air conditioning, okay? But you can come and go as you want. And the difference between that is inmates do time, and when you're done with homeless shelters, the difference there is you get kicked out, you get evicted, okay? There's a reason why most homeless people are put out the shelter between 30 and 90 days. That's exactly when the cash cow ends. That's when the ATM runs out of cash. Then it's all the Bible lessons and cash and free clothes and showers. They suddenly are out of that. Oh, well, wait a minute. You can't charge no cash for her. Got to put her out the door. Put her out the door with a bologna sandwich. That's how that shit works. But look, you can address the continuum of care to get a rapid rehousing voucher or PSH directly without all the BS, all right? Just to be upfront. Now, that system can change names depending on city and state, and that's one of the reasons you'd want to talk to me personally. I have their manuals. I understand exactly how you score that system and how you can get it probably in less than 30 days, okay? We could have you do an assessment within 3 days, and then you'd have your answer that day, and then I guarantee you one thing, you'll be pushing a key in a doorknob. The exception, again, to those rules are certain states like California, New York. It's more convoluted, takes longer. All right, moving on, MT. This is a comment by MT. What is the best way to connect with you for consultation? Let me give you a little information real quick. My voice is starting to wane, guys. I know I've been on this computer now for an hour. If you guys would quit trickling in. All right. To book an appointment is very simple. I'm going to put the link here now. For those of you that don't know this, I'm communicating with people by chat. I don't know if it works on phones, but I know that you should be able to see a chat window on your laptop, your desktop, and your tablet. If you're on a phone, I'm not quite sure how that works, but I'm sure it does because people are communicating. So that is a link to my consulting booking software. And all right, so you need now most people like to see a website, and I'm going to give you that real quick. That way you can get most of your questions answered by visiting this website, which is mine, section8consulting.com. There. Now that's been copied in there, and then I'm going to give you a third link. This is going to be the reviews for different people on the Double Up reviews, and I'm going to make clarity. Let's see if I can grab this real quick. Last link, third and last link, right there. Now that's reviews. Let me make something very abundantly clear about reviews. I don't care what y'all post about reviews. You could say that you hate me. You could say it's the worst service you ever. I don't care. Honestly, I don't hide from shit like that. I don't care about reviews. You're welcome to do so. If you're having a terrible day and you need somebody to take it out on, please go down to my reviews, hit that 1 star. Trust me, I'm not one of those people that freak out about that. I appreciate all the reviews that I do have, but I don't live and breathe that stuff, all right? I know my reputation. I've been on long enough. Them reviews are really there for other people. And if you feel you've been slighted by my service, do it. But I got to tell you, after making 200 videos, I have the lowest ratio of dislikes or nasty comments to anybody out there that does what I do. And so I quit worrying a long time ago. Oh, well, when will I get a 1 star? Who gives a shit? I'm here to help people for free. My video. If you want to rate me badly for that, go ahead. Good God. So now moving back to the Section 8 part, we're exactly at 1 hour. If anybody else has additional questions about Section 8 vouchers, low income, if you're a senior and you're trying to figure out housing, if you're disabled and in a chair, or if you've got children or grandchildren living with you that have severe problems in that respect, if you're a single mom or dad that struggles with mental illness or other issues related to that, and you're having a hard time keeping things together in your mind and you need help with it, I'm here, man. Look, the difference between me and a lot of people that want to do what I do is the fact that they only want to deal with the perfect person. They can't be bothered with low-income people. They can't be bothered with people that have maybe a mental, that are struggling with mental health issues, okay? I deal with everybody. Who the hell, if I didn't do it, then who exactly would? Who would help these people? Yeah, do I take a lot of steam off of my clients that have mental issues and physical stuff and having a bad day? All the time. I've had people curse me out. I've had people that were completely delusional when I talk to them. That's part of this. You have to learn to accept that. If you're going to get out here and do something, you have to be willing to help everybody or just shut it down and do nothing. Okay, that's my philosophy. I'm not here to judge people. I'm just here to help. Crystal Addict, man, it's been a minute, girl. How have you been? If you were able to get this voucher, where do you take it, or how do you find housing or apartments? Okay, I believe you're referring to Continuum of Care again on that rapid rehousing PSH. After taking an assessment, they add up the points that goes in the HIMS system. It gives you a rank. If you've got so many points, then they issue the voucher. Once you have voucher in hand, they can give you a recommended list of approving landlords, which means the only thing you need to establish is simply this. This is the list. You go over there, excuse me, do you have an apartment or not? That's the only thing out your lips should be saying. If they say, yes, may I see it? At that point, you're either approved or you're denied. Now, there are some circumstances with any voucher that can create big problems. If you're on a sex offender list, if you recently decided you were going to be a meth drug dealer, for some reason, meth is a big no-no, okay? Now, is smoking it and getting caught probably going to be an issue? Probably not. But if you were caught trying to distribution, that could be a big issue. For those of you that have had assault, children, if you abuse animals, children, women, or seniors, you're going to have a very difficult time. Now, there is some understanding between that if it has something to do between male and females, okay? Sometimes altercations end up being blown into more than they are, but more often not. So you have to discuss that and prove to the landlord that you're not going to be a problem. So I'm just putting it out there. Person, my landlord, if you abuse anybody, period, I won't accept you, okay? I find out you beat your dog, your children, women, or you abuse the elderly, you won't ever fucking live in any property that I manage. And I manage a lot. I don't manage them personally, but your applications run through me, through a lot of my big landlords. I take on hundreds. And one landlord's got over 10,000 units. He sends me hundreds at a time, and I look at them, and I don't take abusers, okay? You want to treat people like trash, I don't want you in my property. I cannot stand. I understand if you made a mistake and you're better now, but if you're one of those people, good God, I'm sorry. There is some judgment on me, but that I'm only human. I can't handle that. I don't like abusive people. So, anyways, MT says, Jay, we talked the other day, and you said my case is in top priority, disabled senior, dependent, and DBKs, and I should be able to get an application. Well, the thing about it is, MT, right now, I only know you as MT in this chat. So think about that for a minute. I don't have your email, your real name, any of that stuff. So your MT could mean you could be any one of over 40,000 clients I've had over the years. So to hear in this chat is definitely not the time. You'd want to communicate back with me by email. We don't want to put out case details in live chat, and I don't really know who you are. Because let me tell you something, guys, your YouTube name does not equate me to knowing who you really are. I only know y'all by whatever fictional name you used when you created your YouTube name. So just to be clear. Gloria Moore, good to see you. How do I get a voucher in Alabama? I'm 61 years old and with disabilities. Well, we would need to, Gloria, we need to establish where you are actually in Alabama, and then figure out whether or not there is a housing authority servicing the county that you're in. We'd want to establish whether or not they were doing project-based, tenant-based, or if they were handing out emergency housing vouchers or regular housing vouchers. Once we're able to establish that they're open, that they're still considering those of you that are 61. Now, I'd also tell you, Gloria, when you turn 62, the minute you blow out the candles on your cake at 62, you're going to notice this is going to be a lot easier for you because you're then reaching the maximum line on senior, which is 62. And then, of course, you have disabilities. Now, one thing I want to communicate earlier in this conversation, guys, look, in the 1980s, being old, being a senior, having a disability, and so on and so on and so on, meant a lot in how well you ranked. These days, a big majority of the people that are applying are seniors. They are disabled. So we need to be able to, Gloria, to make sure that we have other factors going on with you that would give you great priority. Because right now you would also be competing with a huge pool of seniors with disabilities. And believe it or not, over half of all applicants are disabled. So it does not count. It does not carry the amount of bang that you think it does. But imagine not having a disability and applying. Imagine how bad your day would be. So thankfully, I'm not suggesting it's good to have a disability. I'm just saying that, boy, it's even tougher for those that don't have it. Candy, we'll just say Candy because I'm not quite sure on the last name. I'm in Hawaii and I'm moving to San Antonio, Texas. I have a voucher. What are the steps to take to move there? Now, Candy, I appreciate your enthusiasm in asking that. That's about a 30-minute conversation, and there's a whole lot that goes into that. Porting vouchers is a process. Not only that, but the course of how long it takes, waiting between specialists takes up to 45 days. That's not something I can just simply tell you in the video. There's a lot goes into that. My advice there is just book a consult with me because let me tell you something. When you ported, if this had been pre-pandemic, it was difficult. Now it's pandemic, it's very difficult. And then you're tying it in also that you're in Hawaii. So you're leaving one island, and then you're wanting to guarantee that when your plane lands and you're getting to the next one, the housing authority is going to give you a voucher, and then you also be able to find housing in an overheated market. It's a complicated thing. You understand where I'm coming from, so you don't want to leave it to a few tips and tricks and advice in the video. Spanky25 Parker. Well, you picked the name, Sparky. That definitely caught my attention. How do I get a voucher in Nevada? Well, look, Spanky, you would want first to contact the housing authority in your county. Okay, so I cannot give you advice for the whole state of Nevada. Every housing authority in every county would be slightly different, to be real with you, okay? Then you'd want to eliminate all the counties where the housing authorities are closed or have no vouchers. And then we would want to look at all the preferences that would be required. Are you old enough? Do you make enough money? Do you live in the county? Are you disabled? Are you a senior? Are you a student? So that question right there is loaded, my friend. It's such a loaded question that I would say probably that'd be a good half-hour conversation per menu. Look, if you don't know, if you really don't truly know, man, it's not as simple as pulling out your ink pen and walking down to the housing authority. Trust me on that deal, because the best you can do is spell it out, puck it up, and then you wait 15 to 20 years for it. My advice is get in touch with me. George Henry, how are you, sir? If you have HCB, you're non-elderly but disabled and not connected to 811. Now, how can you be? Well, George, you loaded that one up, didn't you? So you are non-elderly, so you're under 55, but you're disabled, and you don't receive Section 811. How do you get connected to it? Well, I got to tell you, George, it comes down to how you're how you're giving that information on the application. It's kind of like a clever, all right, we know they're going to ask about 30 questions. Can I give them the right kind of answers that guides them in a tricky or clever way to push them into giving it to you? So you see how that kind of sophisticated game works? If you frame your question, your answers in a certain way, you're kind of forcing the housing authority in a position where you have to be considered. But we have to look at all the factors in your life to see whether or not that would be the best use of your time. Let me tell you something else, guys. Section 811 voucher is not the god of all vouchers, actually. A lot of you think that is the rolling thunder of all vouchers to be issued. It's not. There are lots of vouchers that pay a hell of a lot more than Section 811. There are vouchers that pay 100%. There are vouchers that pay 125%. Section 811, I would compare that to buying socks at the dollar store. It's okay, but it's not the best. All right, AG, EHV vouchers. Okay, emergency housing vouchers. Gotcha. 70,000 issued. I would say 99% have already been issued. I think they're going to be doing another round of those. Those currently are only going to be, you'll only be able to get that if you get a referral, which means you walk in, you apply normally, you don't say anything about it. Excuse me, I'll take a drink of my pina colada. Bang. And no, the company didn't sponsor me. Good God. I can't get used to that pina colada in there. Goodness. Nothing like a good coconut in your drink, right? All right, anyways, EHVs have to be referred by Continuum of Care program participants or somebody in the county, like county mental health, county physical health, or county worker must make a referral. It is by referral only. You don't go in, hey, can I get an emergency voucher? Nope, then nobody cares about that. Unless you get a county employee to make a referral on your behalf because they're compelled by your case, they're not going to give you that. There is a slight connection between that and BAWA, which is domestic against violence against women. People that are homeless are more likely to get that as well. So yeah, they're kind of the emergency housing voucher is a little bit hard to get right now. Sammy Jones, hey man, it's been a minute. How are you doing? Jane, do you have the COC elect tests for AZ? Yeah, I believe that they're on the Bose. If I'm correct, Bose 720 or 504. I have to look into it for you. Or I think they may have actually converted over to Espadot, but I got to check and see. So it sounds like, Sammy, you're trying to take that COC or Bose system test for there. For those of you who don't know, that's what I was telling you about those vouchers. You can get 35 days usually. Gail Resources, I finally made it. Well, Gail, I had to talk for an hour, 20 minutes. Girl, I've been waiting on you here, and I'm out of energy now that you just must have just rolled out the bed, girl. I'm just joking. So, well, interesting info. I never know there were others issued. Oh, yeah, God, yeah. The 138 vouchers I can count up, and I'm still exploring the concept of other vouchers being. Look, you've got vouchers that are issued by the Department of Justice, okay? Federal Witness Protection. I can go into vouchers you guys have never even dreamed existed, all right? There are vouchers for Homeland Security. There are vouchers issued for people that had their house burned down, that have been flooded out of a house, from the Red Cross, vouchers from FEMA, stuff that you guys don't even, it's like the tip of the iceberg. I'd open up a whole world of things you guys didn't even realize existed. All y'all guys know is, okay, voucher housing authority. That's it. Look, there's so much more than that. Thanks for entering. I did some Googling and found the test, but was confused. I have a reschedule still. Okay. Well, if you Googled it, I'm suspecting you might have found the expedite, possibly. Just make sure you're on a 2021 one, and it should be version 5. They changed this thing so much, and I find they more often change it because of me. I've been a major catalyst behind a lot of housing authorities trying to mix things up because they really do despise my channel because I give you guys these manuals and other things that they would prefer you didn't have, So there, I got to tell you, I don't know if y'all have ever seen this, guys, on the YouTube channel, but I've posted many times. I have had the state of New York, California, New Jersey, state of Texas, city of Austin, several cities in Florida all come to my YouTube channel personally. They logged in with their county computers, and it's actually in my analytics. They actually watch my videos. Look, these are not these are actually county and state employees watching what I do. They'd all love for me to just trip up, fuck up, so they could throw me into jail for giving y'all enough to elude their tests and their manuals. Or maybe maybe these are county and state employees that aren't investigating whether or not I'm violating some law. I'm not particularly worried. If it's taken them this damn long to go after me, then I look at these as honorary degrees. Every time a state comes to visit my channel, it's quite the honor. In total, 17 states and counties have come watch videos, and I never know the reasons. They always remain quiet. Anyways, AJ, it just stopped freezing. I missed most of the answer. AJ, you have got to get off your mom's flip phone and get off that dial-up. I'm just joking with you, man. Let me roll back. Let's see. I got a letter from. Okay, you got a letter for the EH. Oh, you got your letter for the housing choice voucher. All right. So what are the next steps? Well, the next steps you wait. You're going to be waiting for a housing navigator to contact you in 7 to 14 days. When the housing navigator contacts you about that, then they will issue you a payment standard and a HAP contract, and then you'll be able to move on and start looking for a place to live. Okay. And I know this is exciting times when you're receiving an emergency voucher, but one thing I want you to keep in mind. Look, guys, do not give up the fight. A lot of times you get a voucher, it's you in 90 days, you still don't have nothing, and then they threaten you, we're going to take the voucher if you don't do something with it. But look, what you don't know, AG, is what I'm going to tell all of you. You can get extensions for your voucher, so do not give up. We can get up to two of those extensions, up to 90 days, okay? So don't give up if you don't get it done in the first 90 days. But I got to warn you guys, you need to get it done. It's really preferable to get these vouchers around Christmas time because summer is so nightmarish. So many people looking for a place right now, Sammy Joe, thanks for answering. I did some, okay, well, I already read the part. Yep. Yeah, you had to dig, right, Sammy? Yeah, when I first started doing it, I had to dig a lot too. And one thing you'll look at when you deal with housing authorities, if you right click on the website, they hide a lot of pages. They don't actually hide access under a password. Housing authorities are very clever. But if you look at a housing authority site map, I've watched housing authorities dump all their manuals, everything right in my lap because they thought if they simply hid the tab to the particular web page that I couldn't find it. I've wrecked a lot of housing authorities doing that, including being able to look at some of their data when it comes to them hiring and firing, and a lot of things they shouldn't be saying because they're that stupid. So, yeah, I have all kinds of tricks up my sleeves. And Sammy, you sound like you're pretty smart in the way that you're doing it as well. Sometimes looking at things at a closer ID. Gale Resources, PhD. I wish. I wish I had a PhD. If there one ever exists for this, then I've definitely earned it a few hundred times. George Henry says, was told by someone in the housing authority in Colorado that as of October 1st, they are going to start paying more. I believe that is correct, and I believe that is a mandate both issued by the Senate or the president under if y'all remember the infrastructure plan. I told you there are a lot of things tucked into that legislation, and I got to tell you, it was awful long. Now, you know that about 120-year-olds from Harvard and Stanford and the rest of those places writing all that legislation, then the old fat boy sitting in the, in the not the White House, but probably the White House and Capitol Hill, all sitting in there signing there now. Yeah, we approve of that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm still trying to dig it up. I went and watched the boring Zoom meetings. Oh, yeah. Isn't that pretty neat? Now, what's interesting about HUD and housing authorities, they actually make videos to do the board meetings on YouTube, but they won't use any keywords as in relation to Section 8, low income, and all that. They tried to hide their videos. They're so stupid. I've actually watched a lot of their seminars about their particular housing authorities, and they give out all the rules, their policies, procedures, all neatly put in a video. They just tried to not use any keywords. And so, boy, I'll tell you what, yeah, you can exploit the hell out of them once you figure out which housing authorities are publishing videos and how they do that. So, yeah. Leo Lopez, how can you move from the Bay Area to Los Angeles County? Look, Leo, you'd have to have don't take this personal, man. If you're going to move from the Bay Area to Los Angeles, you clearly have a loose screw, man. Now, I mean that in a funny and interesting and a joking way, but look, why would you move in the depths of hell of LA? I don't know how long you've been hanging out on my channel, but I can tell you the housing crisis in LA is double, triple, 10 times. There is zero chance of finding or getting anything out there. Getting a voucher in the city of Los Angeles is an absolute fantasy. You would have to apply at birth, and you might get one at death. I mean, it's just so bad in LA. It's, I mean, if that's really what you want to do, man, I guess you could. I mean, if you already have a voucher, port there. But I mean, is there any real guarantee you would even find housing in LA? In the LA, Orange, any of that? The waiting list is 200,000 people. That is the population of most mid cities. That's just the people waiting for vouchers. You're wanting to move into that disaster? I don't know, my friend. Maybe we should talk about that. Stephen Smith, looking to book a consultation, wondering if you also assist with landlords. Yes, actually, let me give you a link to my website. I deal with landlords. Now, the thing I want to make clear, I work with landlords that have 20, 30, 40, and $50 million properties. That's 500 to 1,000 units, okay? So I deal with big landlords, but I've also dealt with small landlords, one house. I talked to a real estate agent. She had one house. I've got investment firms in Florida that up to 1,500 houses. So when it comes to doing consulting work for landlords in the Section 8 arena, I'm also the biggest in the nation when it comes to that. There's a few other companies on Google, but they do things a little bit differently. They're what you call 404 specialists. So they only deal in the construction and building and management of that system. So I don't really do what they do. But yeah, let me give you the website so you just take a look for yourself. But yeah, I deal with hundreds of landlords around the nation. I've dealt with them in nearly every state. And so, yeah. And paste. All right, so that's the website there. You just check it out, take a look. There's a booking part there. I think I've communicated pretty well on my website what I do, in respects for landlords. And I take landlords selectively. And one of the rules that I have is I do not accept slumlords at all. If I am somehow tricked into a contract with a slumlord, I will terminate that contract. I won't deal with any slumlords. So I'm just letting any of y'all know, if you're a landlord and you're looking to make life even more hellish for your clients, I will not participate in that ever. In fact, I will work against you and then try to get your HAP contracts violated so you never do it again to a Section 8 tenant. I'm very serious about respecting the honor and integrity of people, because low-income people don't need to be treated worse than they already have it. So I will absolutely go crazy about that. So, but yeah, I love it. I actually enjoy working with landlords and worked with many. My last project, we had 200 units in Riverside, California. Did pretty well. It was a 3-month project. Just recently, we've been working with a landlord, investment firm out of Florida, several in Houston. So yeah. Category, yes. Ask for an extension. Yeah. So yeah, Candy, you're right. Look, guys, anytime you have vouchers, man, you're always going to apply for an extension. Make sure you have a good reason. After the first extension, you're going to have a good reason. Sometimes I tell people sometimes the best thing you can do is check into the hospital. Who knows? Maybe because of a back injury, you weren't able to look that month. You got to buy time any way you can. Sometimes you're going to just have to learn to lie. And I know some of you guys are Christians and you're Buddha. You believe in the stars, or maybe you believe in crystal energy. It doesn't matter. Sometimes you have to bend the truth to get what you want. If the housing authority and receiving vouchers was an honest system, then we could all go down there, sing kumbaya, be friends, Facebook each other, text, and do everything else. But it's not like that. So yeah. George Henry, I'm dealing with slumlord now. All right, man. Let me tell you, I love slum landlords. I don't do business with them, but I love going after them. I've got 2 cases right now where we're dealing with that, and they think they're invincible. The reason they think they're invincible is they rarely come up against somebody that's well versed under federal regulation, that understands the legislation and knows how to go after them. And I got to tell people, man, it's like having somebody. I'm like a rock in your shoe, and there's many different ways to deal with bad landlords. But only the truly bad ones will I ever have to go after, and it's just it's a sad situation for everybody involved. Tanya Gore, I'm getting emergency housing voucher soon, and I want to relocate. Tanya, make sure you do your due diligence and make sure that the housing market and area and county or neighborhoods you're selecting that have the availability out there. These are very, very perilous times. And I'm also concerned, make sure that your payment standards are matching up. Look, guys, one thing housing authorities are doing right now is they're purging people for no reason. They're giving out vouchers and then they violate you. Look, when they tell you if you open up a nail salon and you're making an extra $10 and you report it, they will try to get rid of you. So I'm just cautioning you guys, play by the rules and do it honestly. Sahara, is Section 8 faster or affordable housing? Okay, what? Is Section 8 faster or is affordable housing to get approved? Okay. Well, that's an interesting question. We have to look at the whole nation. I don't even know where you are. I don't know what state or county. So there's not a singular answer to that because every part of the nation reacts differently. But I think I understand the context you mean. Is there really one of them either quicker? Well, I would imagine that subsidy housing. So the word affordable housing can also mean several other things. Affordable housing is also subsidized housing. Subsidized housing is also tenant-based housing. There's about 11 different names you could give that particular phrase you just said. And the answer to that question is yes, if the market is not overheated, it is not in a metropolitan city, and it is not in a major state. Possibly, it can be fairly quick within 3 weeks. If it's anything else, then no. Now, Section 8, well, look, I've never had anybody associate the concept of the word fast and getting a Section 8 voucher from a housing authority. There's nothing fast about housing authorities. Oh, geez, Harry, you're in Los Angeles County? Come on now. Yeah, well, when it comes to Los Angeles, man, y'all hit me hard today with that Los Angeles, man. Look, Los Angeles is the toughest, hardest, longest, most difficult city and state in America by 20x. I mean, I'm telling you, it's killer. Your best chance would be to go after affordable, subsidized housing and lich properties. That would be your very best options. You're going to have to put in your very best every day. You're talking about a whole lot of calls. You have a whole lot of options. I know the subsidy list last check was 340 properties. Now, you could call all 340 that day, but then you need to call them again, all of them again the second day, because things can change incrementally within hours or even days. So it's a lot of work. But if you're persistent and your life depends on doing this like it does with a lot of people, then I think you will be successful with that. But yeah, it is a challenge, and I admire your ability to want to go after that. So, all right, guys, my vocal cords are starting to die. It's been an hour, 28 minutes. I've tried my best to answer as many questions as I can, but I'm not going to do it with losing my voice. So I'm going to wrap this up. I've enjoyed talking with you guys. The best way to reach me, guys, is through my website. When you click on the part where it says book appointment, when you click on that and you're looking at pricing and what I'm offering for that price, you'll also see phone numbers and emails and other things. Okay. The reason I don't just throw out my email and phone numbers because I don't want the damn thing all over Google, because then I'll have people from Russia trying to sell me sex dolls. You know what I'm saying? People in China trying to sell me meth. Who knows? I actively avoid putting my information on YouTube for that particular reason. So please use those links, and I think you'll arrive at the information you're looking for. Beyond that, I've enjoyed talking with all of you. I hope you found some of it education. If you didn't, and you're welcome to leave reviews. Those of you that utilize my service, like I told you guys, if you hate my service, please go give it a 1 star. If it makes you feel good. It doesn't bother me at all. Reviews are welcome, good or bad. I don't care. I'm not gonna. Sammy Joe, I'm not kidding about the sex doll thing. Look, I get craziness on YouTube. People try to get me. They come to me about gambling, sex doll, all kinds of crazy stuff on YouTube, because people in these other nations are scamming and they love to get your credit card number. Yes, they'll try to sell you all kinds of stuff, man. Stuff that I can't even talk about on this YouTube. So that's why I would never want my email or phone number blasted all over YouTube, because of that very reason. These lunatics will call you. On an average day, I get up to 30 calls from people all around the world. And trust me, they're not looking for vouchers, okay? So, yes, you have to, you got to use the website, because I'm not doing all that craziness. So, all right, I've enjoyed talking with you. Y'all take it easy and enjoy your weekend. All right? Bye-bye. Oh, geez. That was long.